it's William from Mod Garage, and I'd like to do kind of a build breakdown on my Yotergoat. So this project started before I even had this truck, actually. I had an 84 Toyota pickup that was solid axle stock. I wanted to put a 4BT Cummins in it, but you know, they're kind of expensive and hard to find in good condition, so I was working at a vape shop at the time and talking with one of my customers about how I wanted to put a 4BT in my Toyota, and he's like, well, why don't you put a 2-stroke diesel in one? I'm like, well, you know, if I could find one for a decent price, I would. He said his buddy had one, had him call him and ask how much he wanted for it. He said $250, so I bought it, and that's what I'm doing the swap with. It's an aluminum block Gamma Goat engine. So the Gamma Goat was a military truck back in the 60s or 70s. I think they used it in the Korean War or the Vietnam War. But they made it an aluminum block because the truck was amphibious. So they wanted to save as much weight as possible so it could float easier. So I kind of scored there with the aluminum block one. Most of them are cast iron. Saved me a little bit of weight, but life happens, and I ended up moving to Mountain Home and got rid of my 84 Toyota pickup, and I got rid of the Detroit. But Mountain Home sucked. There's no mountains in Mountain Home, in case you were wondering. Mountain Home, Idaho. So I moved back, and the Toyota was long gone, but I ended up buying my Detroit back and got this 94 Toyota pickup from Brian Johnson, my second dad almost. I got this truck as a 94 Toyota pickup, all stock, you know, 3.0, straight six, you know, stock height. This rust bucket, got it from him for $600 with a rod knock. He told me that he'd be surprised if I made it home, and I made it home and drove it to the top of the mountain in my backyard like 6 times, so did pretty good. And then I decided I was finally just going to go out there and try and blow the engine up to just get it over with so I could pull it out and start my swap. And the 4-wheel drive wasn't working. It had the independent front suspension, and I don't know, there was an actuator that wasn't engaging. So it was just in 2-wheel drive, and it was a little bit snowy, so I was really giving her the onion, trying to get it out of the backyard, and blew the engine up before I even got it out of my backyard. So it's kind of weird. It was knocking real bad, and then it quit knocking and started shaking real bad. So blah, 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 and then just stopped. But that was okay. I pulled the engine out and started getting ready for the swap. And so I started putting it into this one instead of my 84. So I had to dent this frame rail in with a sledgehammer to get the starter to fit. It's like concaved in. And I had to relocate my oil filter that was down here between the frame so that there was room for the engine to sit down between the frame rails. I wanted it to all clear the hood line. And looks like, besides for this in the stack, it should, if you look in here, there's a aluminum plate that I built on the side of the engine with I think 8 lines that go back to a remote oil filter mount. I wanted a specific thread for my remote oil filter though, so because I have a 24 valve Cummins as well, so I got a remote oil filter mount that had the same threads for the spin-on oil filter as a 12 or 24 valve Cummins. So I can just buy a whole case of those filters and it'll work for both of my trucks. The fucking oil filter, remote oil filter mount that I wanted with that thread, they only had 2 of on eBay, and they were both in Honolulu, Hawaii, so that was kind of strange, but got that shipped over. Well, the independent front suspension was all in the way. I had to cut all that stuff off. It was on the top of the frame rail and wasn't allowing it to go down, so I cut all the independent front suspension off and hung this solid axle underneath it that I got off a parts truck. These fenders came from parts truck too. That's why they're all cut out. They had like big shock towers and shit. I need to find some different fenders that aren't all cut up. But these are kind of just here for a mock-up to make sure that everything's going to fit where it's supposed to. Another problem that I had was with the original steering gearbox. I hooked it up and I had to flip the pitman arm so that the pitman arm went forward so that it wasn't, so that this steering arm wasn't interfering with my oil pan there. And so I had to flip the pitman arm. Didn't really think about it, and that made it so that when I turned my steering wheel to the right, my wheels would go to the left, and vice versa. So did a little bit of research, found out that the FJ 60s and 80s had a reverse cut steering gearbox. So their pitman arm went forward to begin with. So searched some local scrap yards, found one of them, got it mounted up. That's no problem anymore. So this is the throttle linkage. This goes down into the governor. This is to shut the engine off. This is for throttle. Now my problem that I was having is my throttle pedal from the Toyota had 2 1/4 inches of throw on this cable, like it would pull the cable 2 1/4 inches. But this only moves 1 inch at this point. So if I would have just hooked it up straight to this arm, then my throttle pedal would only move 1/3 of the way. And I didn't really want that. I wanted my full throttle throw. So I made this little kind of cam thing out of an old throttle from a car and some plate. And basically this just converts the 2 1/4 inches of pull on this cable into 1 inch of throw on this rod. So that's kind of homebrew, a little bit ghetto, you know, just some all thread that was bent and some plate that I had laying around and some angle that I had laying around. But that's kind of what this whole build's about. It's just getting it done with what I got. So this is its radiator. I pulled it back out because I have to make some slight modifications to it to get it to fit with the stock front clip back on it. But I bought this 3-core Toyota radiator. I had to cut these inlets and outlets off. They were real small, so I had to cut them off and put these bigger ones on that were big enough for the engine. And yeah, that turned out pretty nice. Like I said, I just need to make a slight modification, make it fit a little bit better, and then that should be all buttoned up. It's got lockers front and rear. They came out of that parts truck that I got the front axle from. I swapped the rear axle too because the rear leaf spring was broken in half on the original leaves on the truck when I bought it. And I didn't really know that at the time, and I was off-roading it up in the mountains with a broken leaf spring. But it didn't complain, it just kept going. Actually, funny story, which might be involved with the leaf spring, is supposedly it was in a America's Funniest Home Videos video, and I do remember seeing the video that I was told I was in. There's a guy cutting down a huge pine tree and falls it right on his truck. Supposedly it was this truck, and it has a rebuilt title. They replaced the cab and the bed, so could be, I don't know. It's got a NV4500 transmission behind it, which I had to machine the bell housing, the Gamma Goat bell housing, to get that to bolt up. I did a bunch of research on the internet, found out that with the Gamma Goat bell housing and the GM NV4500, the input shaft should be the right length, that I should just be able to basically bore the center hole out bigger on the Gamma Goat bell housing. I built up the material to make it so that it could have a wider bolt pattern, decked it all flat in the mill, and bored the center hole out. Then just transfer punch the holes from the NV4500 trans to the Gamma Goat bell housing, and it all bolted up. Was able to use a Chevy slave cylinder that is also the throwout bearing, so it kind of just slides over the center shaft of the trans. Both throwout bearing and slave cylinder in one, just a AN4 line coming out. Just had a custom drive line made. I think that's about it until I get some more work done. One thing right now that I'm dealing with is my Toyota clutch master cylinder didn't push enough fluid to move my slave cylinder far enough. So I have to put a bigger master cylinder on here and get it all plumbed up. I've got the master cylinder modified and mocked up so it'll fit, but I'm waiting on a little fitting that'll screw into that master cylinder and hook up to my AN4 lines that go down. And then I should have a clutch. I need to unjam the back brakes. When it was all taken apart, some mud wasps made nests inside the brake lines. So I need to take some welding wire or something and shove it through there, unjam that so I can bleed my back brakes. Once I get the batteries put in and alternator mocked up, and I have a vacuum pump that I'm gonna bolt up so that I don't have to change out my vacuum brake booster, then it should be ready to be on the road. But it won't be done for a long time. I've got a lot of plans for this truck. I'm gonna put Jake brakes on it for one, which is gonna make my valve cover taller. It might stick out of the hood, but I want a hydraulic starter on it. I want a wet kit on it, like hydraulics, air compressor. I'm gonna build a utility bed for it that will hold all, not only my tools, but like my camp and stuff too, and have a rooftop tent on the top, and hot water and power and an awning that goes out around the truck, so I can just pull up to a camp spot and within like 5 minutes have camp set up, ready to start cooking or whatever, and be able to tear down just as fast, you know. You know, it's gonna have bumpers and probably external roll cage and roof rack and lights everywhere. Eventually dual transfer cases or like an Atlas dual range T case. Right now it's just got a stock Chevy one, but I want to make a header. This is the most ridiculous exhaust manifold I've ever seen. It's just like a cast iron fucking brick with a hole out one side. I want to make a header for it, a turbo header, put a turbo on it and the supercharger, maybe even like compound turbos. That's kind of the plans for this truck. But yeah, she's coming along. You know, I can drive it. It moves itself, but it's not roadworthy yet. But it will be. It'll be on the street legal. But it'll be my play toy. I'm not gonna daily it or nothing. But thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Please like this video. If you have any questions or comments, you know, comment below. Please subscribe. There will be more content to come. I've got some pretty big plans for this. I've got a whole bunch of other project vehicles. Me and buddies are talking about doing a demolition derby. You know, who knows? So if you want to see some redneck shit, has to do with weird vehicles and just redneck shit, like and subscribe. Thank you.